as you navigate your job search, you will encounter a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different companies. But which companies should you be on the lookout for when it comes to avoiding making a bad decision? Because we have all made those throughout our careers. So how do we avoid continue making the same mistakes? So number one is a company that has a very toxic work environment. You know, the ones that have very bad reviews, the ones who don't seem to understand why employees are leaving the organization, but yet they really don't want to do anything about it either. And you'll find these toxic work environments with people that have been sitting there for 20 to 30 years. They're long-term individuals, and they always say, hey, you could be the next person who has been here for 30 years also. But it really doesn't mean that you're going to be there for another 30 years, because their environment is so toxic that it's impossible for anyone to stay beyond 6 months or a year. Moving on to the next point is companies that lack the ability to change. You want to ask questions like, when was the last time the organization has been presented with a challenge in which they needed to change, they needed to make a pivot? And you'd be surprised what the hiring manager has to say about that type of change, because when the hiring manager lacks the ability themselves to remain flexible and pivot when necessary, you know that you may find yourself treading water and butting heads with them on a constant basis when it comes to adapting and making change in the future. Okay, moving on to the next point is employers who ghost you. The ones who are extremely disorganized in the recruiting process, and the ones who just kind of leave you completely cold. And I'm not talking about the ones that when you submit your job application, you never hear anything back. I mean, even though that's still a telltale sign, but the ones that have you go through all of these assessments, all of these processes, all of these interviews, and you get to interview 5, and then you hear absolutely nothing back from them, and it sucks. And you don't want to work for a company that has zero regard for your time, and clearly they have some issues that they need to resolve within their organization, because clearly they don't have really good hiring practices and making good decisions themselves. And even though that you are being hired to be the HR person to fix these things, you want to pivot back to the other point that I made, is not being able to adjust to change, because when it comes to those pain points that they want to address, sometimes it's more comfortable to live in pain and discomfort than it is to actually fix the problem. The next point is high turnover within the HR department. Sometimes organizations can have people that exist within that department for a long period of time, but all the new ones that come in, they go right back out because they're so stuck in their ways that they don't want to move forward, and they're going to be fighting you the entire time. Another point that I want to make is the ones that have a full-time attorney sitting in the HR department, I mean an employment law attorney, they have so many legal issues going on that they need a full-time employment law attorney sitting in there. And honestly, it's going to be very difficult for you to move your career forward, because that attorney is going to be there kind of holding the reins all the time. So that's it for me in this video. If you like what you've heard, I would like for you to click subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.